Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is D'Angela Vaughn if you are new here, and if you're not new here, then welcome back to the clique. So today is going to be the second part of my personality disorders mini series, and it's going to be all about cluster B. So if you missed the first video, which was on cluster A, then you can go back and watch that video. I have it in my playlist titled NCE Exam Studying. Alright guys, so now we can just hop right in. And in the first video, we talked about what the DSM defines as a personality disorder. And the DSM defines personality disorder as an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the expectations of the individual's culture, is pervasive and inflexible, has an onset in adolescence or early adulthood, is stable over time, and leads to distress or impairment. And there are 10 different personality disorders, and they're divided into 3 different clusters. So the first video was on cluster A, and this video is going to be on cluster B. So cluster B is categorized as the dramatic or unpredictable cluster. So it includes 4 different personality disorders. Number 1, antisocial personality disorder. 2, borderline personality disorder. 3, histrionic personality disorder. And 4, narcissistic personality disorder. So we're going to go through every single one of these disorders and go through how they are diagnosed by the DSM. So number 1, antisocial personality disorder is defined as a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others occurring since age 15. And in order to be diagnosed, you must have 3 of the following criteria. So number 1, failure to conform to social norms related to lawful behavior or repeated actions that lead to arrest. So this can be stealing, breaking into places, setting stuff on fire. All these things would be counted as unlawful behaviors that can lead to your arrest. Number 2, these individuals are manipulative and deceitful. So they're the type of people that will con other people for their own gain. And they just don't really care about other people's feelings, other people's rights or wishes. They kind of just do whatever they want to do without caring about how anybody feels about it. Number 3, they are impulsive and they don't plan ahead. They make decisions in the spur of the moment. So these people usually change jobs really quickly. They might switch from relationship to relationship really quickly. They're just very, very impulsive, and you can't really predict what they're gonna do. So number 4, these individuals are irritable and aggressive. They are often getting into physical fights, or they're assaulting people. Maybe if they're in a romantic relationship, they might abuse their partners or abuse their children. They're just very, very aggressive. Number 5, they have a reckless disregard for safety of themselves or others. So a lot of times this will show up in like the way that they drive. They may speed a lot, or they might drive under the influence. They probably have been in multiple car accidents that were their fault. They might engage in like risky sexual behaviors or engage in like risky substance abuse practices. Pretty much they just engage in a lot of different risky behaviors that could get them into some trouble. And for these individuals that have children, a lot of times they'll put their kids at risk as well. So they might leave their kids at a store and be like, hey, watch my kids while I go and use these drugs or something. They just don't really care about their own safety or the safety of other people, even their own children. So number 6, the DSM states that these individuals are often consistently and extremely irresponsible. So they will a lot of times have significant periods of unemployment. Even if there are jobs available that they could do, they just choose not to get a job. Or even if they have a job, they'll just up and leave the job without having any plan for what is their next step going to be or have any other job lined up. They just quit without any backup plan. A lot of times they'll have repeated absences from work that are not explained by illnesses or any major events. They just don't go to work. And they're also irresponsible financially. So they might not pay their child support, or they might not pay their debts or their loans. Like, they're just not responsible with their money at all. And number 7, these individuals oftentimes lack remorse, and they're just really indifferent towards hurting other people. They might say things like, well, that's just life ain't fair. Like, they just don't really care that they actually harmed another person or hurt someone's feelings. They may even engage in victim blaming versus taking responsibility for what they did to the person. And oftentimes they're going to minimize the harmful consequences of their actions. So even if the consequence was really, really bad, they're going to be like, that was no big deal. You're just being dramatic. Like, I didn't even really hurt you that bad. That sort of thing. So all 7 of those were listed under criterion A in the DSM, and the other criterion include the individual is at least 18, there must be evidence of conduct disorder with onset before age 15, occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. So if all of those things are true, plus they have 3 of the 7 things that we talked about earlier, then that person can be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. All right, so moving on to the second personality disorder, which is borderline. So borderline personality disorder is defined as a pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image and affects, and marked impulsivity beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. So for this diagnosis, they must have 5 or more of the following. So number 1, they go to the extreme to avoid being abandoned, either real or imagined. So these people are very, very deathly afraid of being left or being abandoned. So that can either be a real possibility of being abandoned or, like it said, an imagined possibility of them being abandoned. Either way, they're constantly worried that the person is going to leave them, and they'll essentially change themselves. They'll change who they are as a person just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. So with these people, even if the separation is temporary, they will still panic. So for example, let's say if they're in a therapy session and the therapist says, hey, I'm going on vacation for a couple of weeks, but we'll resume our regular appointments when I get back. This could cause a person with borderline personality disorder to really freak out and panic because they might feel like their therapist is abandoning them, even though the therapist is telling them, I'm going to be back. This is only a temporary separation. And this is all due to their intense need to be around others all the time. They can't really take being by themselves. And when they are abandoned, they internalize that and feel like they are a bad person, and that's why the person left them. So number 2, these individuals display a pattern of unstable and intense relationships. And this completely makes sense because if they are constantly afraid of being abandoned, of course they're going to try to hold on to people really, really extremely tightly. They might meet somebody and go out on a date with them 1 or 2 times, and after that they are completely like, this is my person. I need to be around them all the time. I need to be talking to them all the time. And of course this is not healthy. And because they put this person on such a high pedestal with such high expectations of them being their perfect person, of course when that person can't actually live up to that, everything comes crashing down, and now that's the worst person ever and they hate them. They just have these dramatic shifts between I love you and I can't stand you because you neglected me and you left me. It's just very, very unstable relationships. So number 3, they typically have unstable self-image or sense of self. So their self-image is very all over the place. It shifts very, very dramatically. They will quickly switch careers, and it won't even be like minor shifts. It'll be like major, 2 completely different careers that aren't related at all. They'll switch romantic partners that are not similar at all. They might switch their sexual identity or change their types of friends. They're just very all over the place, up and down. Even their values might change. So number 4, they display impulsivity in at least 2 areas that can be self-damaging. So some examples can include gambling, spending money recklessly, binge eating, substance abuse, unsafe sexual practices, driving recklessly. Anything that's kind of risky or dangerous, they usually engage in these types of activities. Number 5, they display recurrent suicidal behaviors, gestures, or threats, or they may engage in self-mutilating behaviors. So the DSM actually says that completed suicides occur in 8 to 10% of these individuals. So that is a relatively high amount. And I think a lot of that does come from their impulsivity and kind of their recklessness. They're very up and down. They have very unstable relationships and unstable feelings about themselves and others. And this just kind of adds to those suicidal feelings and suicidal behaviors. And oftentimes those suicidal behaviors is what leads these individuals to seek help. So number 6, affective instability due to marked reactivity of mood. So these individuals, they might have anxiety or dysphoria, irritability, but it's only going to last for maybe a few hours, rarely more than a few days. It's kind of like transient. It doesn't last for any long period of time. And this again just goes back to those unstable moods, unstable feelings about themselves and others. Number 7, constantly having feelings of emptiness. So these individuals are easily bored. They a lot of times just feel empty or unfulfilled, and they're constantly looking for something to do, which is kind of why they jump from place to place, career to career, boyfriend to girlfriends. They just always are kind of like looking for that next thrill in their life. Number 8, they may have difficulty controlling their anger and frequently have outbursts. So these individuals can be extremely bitter or sarcastic, very angry, and a lot of times this comes out when they feel like they're being abandoned or neglected, and it often comes out in their romantic relationships with their partners or with their caregivers. When they feel like that individual is not being caring enough and not giving them what they need or want, that's when those angry outbursts tend to occur. And after the fact, they feel shame and guilt and remorse about having the outbursts. And this kind of like cycles into them again feeling bad about themselves and feeling like, okay, now I'm going to be abandoned and it's because I'm a bad person. It's just kind of like a perpetual loop for these individuals. And lastly is number 9. During stressful times, these individuals may display transient paranoia or dissociative symptoms. And these episodes usually occur when they think they're being abandoned. So if they feel like their partner is about to leave them, they might start to become very paranoid, thinking that, oh, they're falling in love with somebody else. Or they start thinking their partner doesn't care about them or doesn't love them. All of those feelings cause them to feel very stressed, which leads to those paranoid thoughts. All right, so those were the first 2 personality disorders. Now we can move into number 3, which is histrionic personality disorder. And the DSM defines this disorder as a pervasive pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. And for this diagnosis, they need 5 or more of the following. Number 1, these individuals are uncomfortable in situations where they are not the center of attention. So these are those people that are very dramatic, always drawing attention to themselves, whether it's positive or negative. They just have to get all the attention no matter what. When they first meet someone, they're very charming, very flirtatious, and they actually seem very, very open and kind, but only temporarily. Once they have grabbed your attention, they're kind of like on to the next person. These are the individuals that people would call the life of the party. However, once these individuals are not the center of attention, they're going to go all out of their way to recapture that attention. So if they see that you're getting a little bit of attention, they're going to go over here and do something crazy or start making up stories, start dancing, start doing something that's going to bring that attention from you back to themselves. So in the context of a clinician and client relationship, such as a therapist or psychiatrist and a client, these clients are going to be very, very dramatic. They're going to be overly flattering, maybe even flirtatious with their therapist, and they're going to really exaggerate and dramatize all of their symptoms. And typically those symptoms will change from appointment to appointment because they're just going to try to say whatever is going to get them the most attention at that time. Number 2, these individuals are sexually provocative and seductive. And they're not just like this with people that they are interested in romantically. They're like this with everybody. It doesn't matter what their gender is. It doesn't matter what their sexual preferences are. They're just naturally going to be very seductive and flirtatious. Even in professional settings, like they don't care. They're going to still be like that. Number 3, their emotional expressions may be shallow and they will change rapidly. So if you tell them about your mom who passed away, they might act like they kind of care for a little bit, but they're quickly going to move on because that doesn't involve them being the center of attention. The attention is now on you, and they're just not going to be interested in that. Number 4, these individuals consistently use their physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. These people are very concerned about how they look, how they present themselves. They will a lot of times spend a lot of money on their appearance or on their clothing. And if you take a picture of them and it's not very flattering, they will really, really be upset about it. And they're probably going to ruminate about that picture for a while. Number 5, they speak in a way that is impressionistic. So impressionistic means very like general or vague and oftentimes overly emotional. So for example, they might come up to you and say, "You are the most amazing person in the world." And you will be like, "Oh, really? Why do you say that? What makes me so amazing?" And they won't be able to tell you. They just were saying it just to say it, but they don't have any real specific details for why they said that. So number 6, these individuals are very theatrical and dramatic. And oftentimes it can get so bad that it embarrasses whoever is out with them or around them at the time. They'll just randomly have a super emotional outburst while you're out at a restaurant or something. And the outburst is typically going to be completely out of proportion to what is actually going on. And yet they're able to turn off these emotions very, very quickly, which leads people to think that they are probably faking it. Number 7, they are easily persuaded and influenced by others and what's popular. So they're not really going to have strong opinions on their own. They're kind of just going to go with the flow of what other people like or what they think other people like. And that's, again, part of that trying to be the center of attention, trying to join in with everybody. If everybody in the crowd is talking about how much they like a certain singing group, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I definitely love that group. I have been listening to them since they first got big. And you're just like, but it's just because they're just trying to be the center of attention. And lastly is number 8. They often consider relationships a lot more intimate than they actually are. So it could be somebody that's just an acquaintance of theirs. Maybe they only met 1 or 2 times. But the histrionic person is going to say, this is my best friend. We hang out all the time, when in actuality, you're not that close. And even in professional relationships, they might refer to their physician by their first name. Like, oh yeah, I went to see Bob today. And you're like, Dr. Smith? But they just feel like they're on first name basis with literally everybody. Alright, so the last personality disorder for this video is the narcissistic personality disorder, and the DSM defines this disorder as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, need for admiration and lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. So for this one, they have to have 5 or more of the following. Number 1, they often have a grandiose sense of self-importance. They exaggerate their talents, achievements, and they expect to be recognized as superior even if they don't actually have the achievement or talent to back it up. They're often very boastful and pretentious, and oftentimes they will overestimate their own abilities while they underestimate other people's abilities. So number 2, they are preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. So they are very, very obsessed with power and success. And a lot of times they're constantly comparing themselves to like famous people or people that are very like influential and powerful. Number 3, these individuals oftentimes believe that they are special or unique, and they expect others to recognize them as such. So not only do they think that they are super special and unique, but they oftentimes will only associate with other people that they think are very special and unique as well. They'll say things like, oh yeah, I only go to the top doctors or the top lawyers. Like they feel like they are super important and they must be with other super important people. However, if those very important people disappoint them in some type of way, now all of a sudden they're going to discredit all of their credentials and say they're the absolute worst, I would never recommend them, all of that. So number 4, these individuals require excessive admiration. And that's because their self-esteem is very, very fragile. And you have to constantly feed their ego or else they will not be pleased or happy. A lot of times they're very preoccupied with how they're doing. They're always checking the charts to see how well they're doing, or they're always trying to gauge how much other people like them. These individuals need excessive attention. They literally expect a standing ovation when they walk in the room. Otherwise, they don't feel good about themselves. Number 5, they have a sense of entitlement. So, for example, they might go to a restaurant and expect VIP seating, even if they're not that important. They might go to a basketball game and expect floor seats. They're not necessarily going to want to wait in line at places. They feel like they should be able to just skip through the line. They just have a sense of entitlement everywhere that they go. And they're oftentimes confused when they don't receive that type of catering. Number 6, they expect to be given whatever they want or feel that they need, regardless of how it impacts others. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. They don't care how it impacts somebody else. If they want it or they need it, they expect it to be given to them, and that's just that. And they're pretty much only going to form relationships or friendships with people that they feel like can benefit them in some type of way. They're not really concerned about helping the other person. It's kind of like all about themselves. Number 7, these individuals have a lack of empathy and they struggle to recognize the desires, experiences, and feelings of others. So a lot of times these individuals think that everybody is concerned about them and only them. And so they really don't take into account how anybody else feels, and they're just not very empathetic people. They might be in a conversation with you and they'll just go on long tangents about their struggles and their issues and never ever stop to ask about how you're feeling. And it's because they really don't care about your feelings or about what you're struggling with. They just care about their own feelings. And a lot of times they're very oblivious to how much what they say hurts others. And if you're waiting on an apology from these people, you're probably not going to get it. Number 8, these individuals are often envious of others, or they believe that others are envious of them. So if somebody else gets an achievement or gets recognized, these narcissistic individuals are going to be very, very jealous and feel like I deserve that way more than that person did. Even if that person had the abilities or the talents that the narcissistic person did not actually have, they're still going to feel like they should have gotten whatever the success or whatever the recognition was. And they're oftentimes going to really downplay that person's achievement to make themselves feel better about the fact that they didn't reach the same level of success. And lastly, these individuals are characterized by arrogant behaviors. So this one is, again, very, very self-explanatory. These people are often very patronizing or very snobbish. They think they are literally all that, and there's nothing that you can tell them. And they pretty much just think they're better than everybody else. And they really don't care that you don't like it. All right, y'all. So that was all 4 of the cluster B personality disorders. Just a quick little recap. Antisocial personality disorder are those individuals that are very reckless and don't really care about obeying laws and are typically very irresponsible. People with borderline personality disorders have very unstable interpersonal relationships. They're always afraid of being abandoned, and they don't have a stable sense of self. People with histrionic personality disorders always have to be the center of attention, and they're oftentimes very flirty and seductive. And lastly, narcissistic personality disorder are those individuals that always think they are the most amazing thing ever and they expect that everybody else thinks the same thing and they expect to be treated that way. I feel like I could definitely name a poster child for narcissistic personality disorder, and it might have been one of our former presidents, but I'm not gonna go there in this video. Alright, y'all, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please let me know down below, and also let me know any other topics that you guys want me to discuss. Of course, after this video, I'm going to finish up with the cluster C personality disorders, but after that, I will be moving on to another NCE study topic. So if you guys have any topics that you want me to talk about, leave those down below in the comments. And also give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. That really helps to spread my videos through the YouTube algorithm. And join the clique if you have not already done so by hitting that subscribe button. Thank you guys as always for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.